Good day, I'm Jacosalem and I'm here to discuss to you some parts of air conditioning, including 4 components of refrigeration cycle. So what are you waiting for? Let's go. So these are the front panel, the supply air, return air, and the control panel. And this is the filter that we cleaned earlier. So the filter was positioned here in the front panel. So now, let's discuss the refrigeration cycle. So, the refrigeration cycle starts from the compressor, to condenser, to expansion bulb, to evaporator, and the evaporator fan. To easily understand the refrigeration cycle, I will cut the parts first into vertical and horizontally. So, in the left side, all the refrigerant has a low pressure, while in the right side has a high pressure. So let's start in the refrigeration cycle. So it starts in the sanction of the compressor, which is the low pressure, low temperature vapor. After its sanction, it's discharged in high pressure, high temperature vapor refrigerant. So the compressor's work is to compress the refrigerant. The tendency was, if you compress the refrigerant, the pressure was going high, also the temperature. After that, the flow of the refrigerant was to condenser. The work of the condenser was to reject the heat. The high temperature will turn into low temperature. After that, if the heat flows outside the condenser, the state was already high pressure and low temperature liquid refrigerant. So after that, the flow of the refrigerant was going to condenser. The work of condenser was to reject the heat. The high temperature will turn into low temperature. After that, if the heat flows outside the condenser, the state was already high pressure and low temperature liquid refrigerant. After that, the refrigerant flows in the expansion bulb. The work of the expansion bulb is to turn the pressure to low. It has a small capillary tube, so if the heat from the condenser flows to expansion bulb, the pressure will turn into low pressure. In the expansion bulb, will regulate the coil. It depends on the thermostat. So after the cycle happens in the expansion bulb, if it's out from the outlet of the expansion bulb, the high pressure, since we're going to the low pressure side, in the left side the pressure will turn into low pressure, low temperature, low liquid refrigerant. So after the cycle happens in the expansion bulb, it is already out from the outlet of the expansion bulb. The high pressure, since we're going to the low pressure side, in the left side, the pressure will turn into low pressure, low temperature, liquid refrigerant. After the cycle, we'll going to the evaporator, where the evaporator fan is located. In the evaporator, this is the part where the cooling in our rooms that we can feel came from. The work of evaporator is to discharge the cooling outside that we can feel from the aircon. So if after the evaporator is out, it was already a low pressure and low temperature vapor. So that's all for the discussion of 4 components of refrigeration cycle, which is the compressor, condenser, expansion bulb, and the evaporator. Always remember that the sanction of compressor is always vapor to avoid the breakage or damage in the compressor. Because once the liquid was going inside the compressor, it has the tendency that the compressor will burn. We should always remember the important parts of the air conditioning system so that we avoid the damage or breakage of the important parts of the aircon. Because without aircon, our life is not comfortable.